Welcome to the Glen Mercer Show, where we talk all things vegan. If you're not already vegan, no worries, we'll get you there. If you are, tune in for health advice, information on climate change, and all the damage done by our most destructive industry, animal agriculture. We'll also talk cooking, theater, film, and culture. My 2 reasons for starting this podcast: to entertain, to inform, and to make people vegan. Oh, that's 3. Shit. Hello and welcome to the Glen Mercer Show. You can find us across all podcast platforms. You could find us at realmeneatplants.com, and you could find us at the Glen Mercer Show on YouTube. My special guest today is my co-author, the recipe author of America Goes Vegan, our new book, Tracy Childs. She wrote all the recipes in the book. I actually helped her with 1 or 2, actually. And she is the founder of Tracy's Real Foods. She is a culinary magician. She holds her certificate in nutrition from Cornell, and she is a Food for Life instructor. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thank you, Glenn. So glad to be here. I've been so excited to be part of this project because, obviously America is going vegan and we're making it happen.
Yeah, well, look, we have, I think it's like a 6 or 7 step plan here. First, everyone gets the book, America Goes Vegan. Then everybody gives it to a friend who is not yet vegan. Then everybody reads the book. Then America goes vegan. Then the world goes vegan. Then the climate starts to cool. And then a celebratory concert in Central Park with Paul McCartney. So that's it. It's a 7-step plan. And you can get your tickets now to the concert. I don't know if Paul knows about that. But that's the plan. But it has to start with picking up a copy of America Goes Vegan, in which there are 120 recipes by Tracy. And they are all healthy, vegan, low-fat, gluten-free, sugar-free, oil-free. So this is not about just going vegan. It's going healthy vegan. So Tracy, tell our listeners and viewers why it's important to not just go vegan, but go healthy vegan.
Well, there's the SAD diet, right? That's the standard American diet, SAD diet. A lot of people don't know about that, but it's sad. It's been causing diseases. It's leading to an epidemic of obesity, an epidemic of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all those things that we think are just part of growing old here in America. Well, they're not. They don't have to be. And then when people turn vegan, sometimes I call it the VSAD, the vegan SAD diet. They think they're doing a good thing, and they are by going vegan. They're definitely decreasing our demand for animal products, which is paramount. But then they still think they're going to be deprived, so they go out to eat and they get French fries, they get all the fried foods, they turn to the Impossible Burger, and they eat too much of that stuff, and it's a vegan SAD diet. So what they're doing is just switching over to the same foods that cause the issues that they're already having, and maybe it's a little better because there's no cholesterol in those foods, but they have a lot of saturated fat, so that also can raise your cholesterol and still lead to heart disease. So what we need is for us to all be a good example of how veganism can help people. And
Right.
And a number one reason is to be healthy. I mean, not the number one reason, but for people themselves, they're doing it for their health. They should definitely do it in a healthful way, even if they aren't doing it for their health. If they're doing it for the environment, think about it. It's like all that processed food. That's not good for the environment either. right? All those
Right.
oils.
Plus, if you're doing it just for the animals, if you're just an animal rights activist who goes vegan, well, don't you want to live long to keep fighting for the animals?
Yeah.
Don't you want to set a good example for other people so that they'll go vegan? Because if you're going to be an obese, unhealthy vegan, other people might not want to join you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that everybody do this in a healthy way. And yet, even when you're eating healthy vegan, what we have done in this book, what really Tracy has done, is focus on comfort foods. So there are recipes here for mac and cheese, pizza, portobello mushroom steaks, tempeh tacos, tofu balls with spaghetti, chocolate chip cookies, cupcakes, all made in a healthy way. So you can have those comfort foods, you could have those delicious foods, you could have those treats, but you're not going to have them with sugar and oil and coconut oil and all that unhealthy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say, Tracy, that the worst sins of the VSAD diet, the unhealthy vegan diet, would be oil, particularly coconut oil, and sugar,
Yes. Well, and palm oil.
palm
That's
oil? Yeah.
that's the one that I really, coconut oil is one thing, but palm oil is another. They both are full of saturated fat, but palm oil is what they use in lots of the cookies that
Yeah.
are vegan, and I don't even consider palm oil to be vegan, honestly,
Why
because
is that?
it's trashing the environment in the places where they grow palm oil. They're
Mm-hmm.
destroying the habitat for animals just to knock down everything and grow the palm to create the palm oil. And so, and we as consumers, we have no idea what, unless you get it certified or you find out that, yes, it is sustainable palm oil, which I don't know, some people say that's not even possible. I really think that, getting away from palm oil is paramount, and just
Yeah.
not supporting those companies that are using palm oil that consider themselves vegan. It's obviously just a processed food from coconut. If you like coconut, just eat a little bit of coconut. Put a little on your, I'm going to be making a chia pudding to show you guys. You could put a little sprinkle of toasted coconut on there, and at least it's a whole food. And
Right.
you're using a lot less fat when you do the whole foods. So that's one thing that we explain in the book, is about whole foods versus processed foods, and what that means. Because when you create treats, like I create my double chocolate cookies, or my carrot cake cookies, well, they're made with whole foods for the most part, especially especially my carrot cake cookies, because there's no chocolate chips in those. So these are, day sweetened, made from whole foods, from almond flour and carrots, raisins, lentils. So, you can think outside the box, and that's what I enjoy. The challenge is so fun. The challenge of creating things that taste good, that are made with different ingredients. As long as the ingredients taste good that are going into it, just keep experimenting and you come up with something good. Yeah, and dates are amazing sweetener.
And dates are really the healthiest way to sweeten
Yeah.
desserts, aren't they?
Yeah, I think because there's sugar-free things that are available that they're still not sure about it. It's a white powder. It's processed.
Right. So
So
when did you first become a vegetarian, Tracy?
when I was 17, so I was in high school taking biology class, and the instructor had us dissecting things, and he was studying and showing us what was in some meat. Actually, he took a cross section of pork and up there on the screen, and he was pointing at all the different microorganisms that were in there that could kill you. And he said, "Oh, but don't worry, you cook it, so it'll kill all those microorganisms. You're fine." So I just took that as, you know what? I don't want to risk that. And that's grossed me out to no end. That I didn't care if they were cooked or not, and dead or not. I didn't want to eat them. Um, so that was the start of it. I came home. I told my mom. I said, you know, I'm disgusted, and she said, "That's fine. You can be a vegetarian." I was like, "Okay." And you know, we didn't eat a lot of meat anyway, and I didn't like meat, so I was the one that took the piece of bacon as a child and would like dissect it on my plate or just separate the fat because I hated eating the fat. So,
Yeah.
Any roast beef was disgusting. So I just found it disgusting anyway. The only meat I liked was completely processed.
Mm-hmm. So
That
you
had
couldn't
no
identify what
resemblance.
it was.
Exactly. And my
Yeah.
mom never bought that. I mean, well, bologna, but
Yeah.
so, and
So
then
you stop eating meat at that point. Did you stop eating eggs? When did you stop
no.
eggs,
So
dairy?
there was no, hardly any vegetarians. I didn't know any vegetarians. Um, and after that, I went to college in Idaho, University of Idaho, being kind of like, I don't know. Well, my family's from Idaho, so I went there. Probably the only vegetarian in the whole state. and back then I actually did eat. To be truthful, I ate fish once in a while. It wasn't something I liked to cook or had an affinity towards, but it was difficult to be vegetarian. So I ate a lot of cheese, a lot of probably not as many eggs because I was picky about those too, but sometimes ate eggs. And I liked a quiche. I would make quiche. That was, that also did not resemble the egg anymore. So really, I guess, naturally, that was the type of diet I really liked. And so as I progressed through out of college, just reading all the books, there was some gurus out there even back then, especially, in the late 80s, 90s, Diet for a New America, John Robbins, Neil Bernard was getting started, it made more like 85. But I just started to, receive all their information as much as I could. This was before the internet, before email.
The
And
telephone had been invented, though, right?
mail,
Yes,
newsletters.
hadn't it?
So I would get the magazines and I read it all. And there was a vegetarian resource group
Right.
out of the East Coast, out of Baltimore. And I got their newsletter and they were actually vegan. So they called it
Right.
vegetarian resource, but everything was vegan. So, I just got educated
So
about
when did you transition to vegan?
in 1990. Yeah.
1990.
So, and that's when my son was born. So,
Okay.
I was doing it when I was pregnant. I was just, exploring and realized that, I didn't want to contribute to the cruelty. That was, the basic reason for me was that just once you, realize, and there was no movies, there was no videos, but I read enough about it that I realized there was no such thing as cruelty-free animal products. I went the route of most people, trying to get cage-free eggs, trying to
Uh-huh.
get organic milk, thinking that was going to be a better choice. And, maybe it is, but it wasn't. I realized from reading that it really wasn't a choice that I wanted to make, that
Right.
I felt good about, because you don't know. Just
Right.
like you don't, the only way you know about anything is if you raise it yourself, honestly. But at least with plants, and, if it's organic, you have to eat something. And so you can kind of, expect that at least there's not a lot of cruelty involved. So
Now
at
you
least,
have two. You have two adult children.
yes.
Did you raise them both vegetarian, vegan? What'd you do?
Yeah, so like I said, I was a longtime vegetarian already when my son was born in 1990. So he was a vegetarian, and back by then I wasn't eating fish anymore. And but I did find out that he, I worked then, so I was breastfeeding, but I also used some formula, and the soy formula, it agreed with him so much more than the dairy.
Hmm.
So that was a clue right there too. And then by the time my daughter was born in '95, I was already vegan. So I gained a lot less weight with the pregnancy, had a lot easier pregnancy, and really easy breastfeeding. It agreed with her more, you know, because the dairy, I was still eating some dairy a little bit when I was breastfeeding him, and it didn't agree with him. So I mean, that's just something just anecdotal, but humans, designed we're not baby cows.
No,
My
no, we're
baby
not.
was not a baby cow. He was a human. And
It's
so
it's
he
so it's so
like plants.
blindingly obvious that it's foolish to drink cow milk, and yet most people do it. It's hard for me to understand. So, have your two kids not eaten meat in their lives?
No.
No.
Except one time when my daughter, sometimes she'd be cruising around and she'd like see about some other kids meet those sitting there or something. And I just like tackle her and grab it out of her
You
mouth
tackled her. Okay.
when she was a toddler. But
Yeah.
yeah, so, and
But
it,
now,
and
now
it's
as young
accident.
adults, they're pleased to be vegan, right?
Yes. Yeah. So anytime they ate meat was accidental.
Right.
And they honestly, even though we lived in a community where they didn't know any other vegetarians hardly at all. We're in San Diego, but we're in the east part called Poway, and it's a pretty conservative community. Really great place to raise kids, but very conservative and not very many vegans or vegetarians back then. But they still, just even though we didn't make a huge deal out of it, they just never had a desire to eat meat.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
I think it's character building to grow up feeling a little different than other people and knowing there's a good reason for it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So yeah, now they totally value the whole lifestyle, and they live in Los Angeles,
right.
so they love the fact that it's easy to be vegan there, and there's so many choices. It's it's just people just need to try the food, try going to some of the nicer restaurants that create really good, can do amazing things with vegetables, or just read our book and then learn how to
Yeah.
make good things with vegetables as simply too. And that's what when I created the recipes for the book, I really wanted to, make it accessible for people to do this, and make it easy for people to eat healthy. So some of the
Yes.
things are a little more involved, but I definitely have lots of simple recipes. I wanted to show a couple of simple recipes today for
We
our
will,
audience too.
we will do that shortly. But where do you come up with your recipe ideas? What's the
Yeah, so
creative inspiration?
I started out getting just your normal vegan cookbooks and following those recipes, but mostly, especially with the baked goods, they just switched it from a regular recipe over, which called for white flour, called for white sugar, called for butter or oil, whatever. And they just took the eggs out or replaced them with something like an egg replacer. So that's one way of doing it, but that's still not a healthy way, right? Because it's still calling for the white flour, the white sugar. So I started using other types of sweeteners, and I started using whole wheat flour. But then I made a focus on, even though I don't have any allergy per se to gluten, I just put it as a challenge and I felt like I wanted to learn how to cook gluten free, and I just had an affinity towards eating gluten free. So I started experimenting with more gluten free recipes. Again, a lot of those recipes call for things like white rice flour, and processed flours. So, and a lot of starches. So those don't really have much nutrition. So I found oat flour. And so oat flour is a nice substitute for wheat flour. It's got a nice base to it, and it's a whole food though. So you can make
Right.
it yourself in your Vitamix. So
Yeah.
or any blender, you can just put oats in there and blend them up. And so then you got flour. So it's kind of cool. You don't have to actually buy anything else. You just have your oats and you can have oat flour. So I explain that in the book too, how you can just create your own flour, keep it on hand. And then, so that's one thing, is you don't have to buy a lot of special ingredients or some one-to-one gluten-free flour mix that you don't exactly know how to use it, because it's like, what's in here? Does it have leavening in it already? Does it have xanthan gum in it? All these things that we don't need.
Right.
So.
And so you've been vegetarian and then vegan now since
Around 1990. Yeah.
1990. So that's 33 years. Has anything been difficult about that?
Oh, well, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I mean,
What's the difficult part?
the difficult part is socially and traveling. So going to parties, or going to, especially when you're going to an event that's going to be many hours, then
Yeah.
and traveling to that, right? So we've
Right.
gone to all the weddings, the bar mitzvahs,
Right.
all the family events, and they're dealing with their venue. So they'll say, oh, they may say vegetarian, they may say vegan, whoever, what's defining you.
Right.
And so I've, eat ahead, bring food, bring at least some crackers or something, or, the best thing
Right.
to bring is some, nuts and, almonds and raisins or something like that that's filling. Some kind of trail mix. Always keep that on hand, and that doesn't go bad. So you can just bring it in your bag and you can have it. So yeah. But the world is going vegan, just like we said, and I almost pinch myself now with how many friends I have that are vegan now, and how much easier it is now, because people are figuring it out. Even when I went to Soda Springs and we had a launch for our book, and I was there for a family reunion, and I was just really surprised that the grocery store had almond milk. It had refrigerated big carton of almond milk. It had vegan ice cream the kids bought. So
And
it
this is in
had
Idaho.
juice in this small town, Soda
Right.
Springs, really
Right.
small. You cannot, to fly there, we had to fly to Salt Lake City and drive 2.5 hours. That's how
Yeah.
remote it is. And it's only got like 3,000 people, but they had a couple grocery stores, and the grocery stores were pretty good. So there's somebody in that town that's looking for dairy alternatives and eating tofu. So we went
I
to
remember
a restaurant, had some tofu. So
I remember when I lived in San Francisco in my 20s, I had a friend who was a jazz singer. And I discovered he had never been outside of the city limits of San Francisco in his life. He was in his
wow.
20s. He had never left San Francisco. But his uncle from Idaho invited him to come stay with him. So he decided to leave San Francisco for the first time in his life, in his mid 20s, to go to Idaho. He was a little bit nervous about it. I remember I wished him well, and then he came back, and I said, how was your exotic trip? And he just said, never leave San Francisco. It's just potatoes out there. So that was his view. So what are you going to cook for us today, Tracy?
And I went to college there, so
Okay.
as a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I chose a couple of simple recipes, really important. Dessert, vegetables.
Dessert and vegetables, the two basic food groups.
Yeah, that's all you
Okay.
need. So,
Okay.
I love showing people how to create a kale dish, because when I was, like I said, I was pregnant when I became vegan, and I was concerned about calcium and about nutrition and how to how to get that. So I wanted to keep my strong bones. So I learned about kale and went through lots of trial and error, and I just figured out, about the last 10 years how to just really make it taste good. So let's start with that. And then my dessert is the chocolate chia pudding. So let me show you this recipe. So we're doing, so
what page is that on the book? In the book,
it's on page 166. It's the cheesy kale.
166. Okay, let me get my copy.
Super simple. It's just all you need is boiling water and your kale. So I like to use this curly kale. Yes, thank you. And so what makes it cheesy, I'm getting my water boiling here, is using some Parmesan. So I sell this with Tracy's Real Foods, but I went ahead and gave you guys the recipe in the book. So there you go. Everybody needs to know how to make a parm because this is going to add flavor to every vegetable. So I've taught classes with the PCRM, and one of the things I love to show people is how to make their own Parmesan cheese so that you can sprinkle it on things. You can sprinkle it on your pasta. You can just use nutritional yeast if you want, but you can, put a little bit of seed or a nut in there. So what I use, mine is called Sunny Parm, so it's with sunflower seeds. So, and that's what this is. But the recipe is you just put everything in your blender. So it's a half a cup of sunflower seeds, half a cup of nutritional yeast, and then some spices. And you can add salt if you want. Of course, cheese always has lots of salt. So, but if you're on a salt-free diet and you've lost the taste for salt, good for you. You don't have to add it. And also, nutritional yeast has a kind of a salty flavor on its own, even though it's a cheesy flavor, salty flavor. I found a really good organic one on Amazon, and I also get unfortified nutritional yeast. So get your B12, take it as a supplement. You don't have to get it in your nutritional yeast. So it's nutritional on its own without the fortification. It's got protein in it. It has lots of B vitamins. It doesn't have B12 because B12 is one that is not present in animal products naturally. But the other thing that it has in it, if it's fortified, is folic acid, which is the man-made form of folate, which is in all these vegetables. So you don't need to eat folic acid. So it's in lots of things because a lot of people have a deficiency of it because of that SAD diet we talked about. But if you eat your vegetables, then you're going to be fine.
Now, when you say you don't need to eat folic acid, you mean you don't need to take folic acid supplements?
Exactly. You don't need to take the supplement. It is been shown to, if you have too much of it building up, it can be a carcinogen. So your body just doesn't really know what to do with this folic acid that has been man-made. So just eat folate. Eat your vegetables, and you'll get plenty of folate, especially your leafy greens. So let me show you what I do here. So this is your nice curly kale. It comes in different varieties, but I like for this recipe to use the curly kale. So you can see my water there. This is a tool that I recommend everybody get. It's a spider strainer, wire strainer. It kind of has a spider web look to it. So easily de-stemming your kale is to just go ahead and move your hand along and grab the stem off. So the stem I put in my freezer and I create broth with it. So you can also put it in soups, chop it up. It stays for a long time in your fridge, but it cooks a lot slower than the leaves do. So to get a nice tender leafy green, then I remove the stems. You don't have to, but that's what I do. So you can see I've got my water boiling. And what I do is I just kind of tear the kale up here. You can rinse it if you want, but you are putting it in boiling water, so you don't have to necessarily wash it, because this is going to wash it. Can you see that? So what I do is I take my strainer and I push it down. And then I always have this set up here on my stove, is a strainer, a sieve, and then a bowl underneath. And I literally do this for like a minute and a half. The fresher it is, the faster it cooks. So if you just get it from the store, it looks really nice and fresh, then it will take less time to get it nice and tender. Now, you don't want to overcook. That's the problem that a lot of people have, is that the vegetables are overcooked and they've lost their flavor. Nobody likes them. And they turn nice, bright green.
Yeah. Now, why is it that the fresher ones cook faster?
I don't know, but I've noticed that when I bring it home from the store and I have time to cook it right away, then it tastes better and it's faster. It just gets tougher as it ages in the refrigerator. So if you follow Dr. Esselstyn, he'll tell you that if you have heart disease, or just anyone really, this is not going to hurt you. But if you have heart disease, you should eat some leafy greens like this 6 times a day. 6 times a day. It's just going to bathe your arteries with the nitric oxide that is present in these vegetables when you chew them. So chew them really well. Now, we like to follow our gurus, and Dr. Greger will tell you to eat some of the raw with the cooked. So the raw is going to activate the sulforaphane, which is a cancer fighter, that gets diminished when you cook it. So the reason I cook them is because it's easier to eat, and I will eat more of it this way, and it's easier to have your daily 6 times a day. So what you can do here is you create this, and then you can put it in the fridge, and it tastes really good to me right out of the fridge. But for people who are new to this, then I've got the Parmesan recipe in the book, and you can easily do that. So what I want to do now is I want to make sure that this is nice and dry, or as dry as possible. So I squeeze out the water. This is when you're going to be adding the cheese to it. So you squeeze out the water, and then we'll dump out the water.
Now, what percentage of your diet would you say is raw, Tracy?
Is raw? I always have raw foods. Well, I have a lot of raw fruit in the morning, and I always have salad, usually for lunch, but it might have some cooked stuff with it. And then for dinner, I'll include some, usually if I don't have a salad, I'll just have some raw, like crudités with it, some cucumbers, things like that. So it's a mix. It's not a huge percentage right now. I've changed over the years. I have a husband to feed, so he's always hungry. So we have to have cooked food. Don't have to, but
But it sounds like you have raw food every day, and it might be
every
a
meal.
third,
It's important to have it
or
with
a quarter of your diet, something like that.
Yes. And those enzymes are important to include with every meal, and with snacks. So then
Here's the cheese.
Cheese. So you just sprinkle that on. Of course, you can add other spices. You can add a little rice vinegar in here too. A little. I put a little when I make my parm. It has vegan lactic acid in it, which adds a little tartness, so gives it more of a cheesy flavor. I didn't call for that in the recipe because most people don't have that on hand. So yeah, so then you just toss, and then I'll always add another bit, and then you've got it. So, it smells so good. It's this is not suffering, right?
All right. So that's
Yeah,
the cheesy kale.
that's the cheesy kale from the book, and
Okay. Now
super
it's time
easy.
for dessert.
Now you've had your veggies, and you can have your dessert. So, super simple recipe. Like I said, all of my baked goods that I create for Tracy's Real Foods are sweetened with dates. Most of them. I actually have these granolas also super clean that are sweetened with dates. Most of my recipes in the book, the desserts, if they're sweetened with something that's dates or date sugar, you can use. And I like to give people options too, because you may not have dates on hand, or you may not be able to get them, but you could get date sugar. So in that case, you can adjust because it's obviously a dry product and dates are a moist product. So pitted dates, watch for the pits. Even when you buy pitted dates, squeeze every date.
Right. There could be a rogue pit in there somewhere.
Yeah, because it's not fun.
Right.
So hopefully I've some little tiny ones sometimes escape. So anyway, so we'll add our dates. There they are. So the recipe calls to add in a certain got my milk, a certain order, because for instance, the chia seeds, you don't really want to put them at the bottom of your blender because they may stick. Once they hit liquid, they expand and they can stick on things. So there we go. So this is chia seeds. I have a couple chia recipes in the book. You can also use chia seeds to replace oil. In this case, they're replacing a starch or something that might thicken a pudding. So, instant pudding, I don't even know what's in it, but this is a really healthy version of an instant pudding. And, so chia seeds, you can also make a chia pudding, and there's another recipe where you just let it sit and thicken, and it's more lumpy. It's got a nice texture. But if you want a smooth texture like this one, then you just blend it all together. So we're going to add 2 cups of milk. I like to use unsweetened soy milk.
Okay, looks like we've got a commercial going for Trader Joe's. I'll have to remind them to subsidize this broadcast.
Yes, thank you. That would be nice. And I love to give people options. There is a hemp milk recipe in the book also. So if you don't want to buy Trader Joe's, or you don't want to use soy for whatever reason, you can make a hemp milk. You can make a oat milk. You can use anything, any kind of dairy alternative in here. But I like to use this. It's more filling. It has some protein added. A lot of the dairy alternatives don't have much nutrition. And of course, they're much better than dairy. But almond milk, I've heard, doesn't really have a lot of almonds in it. So now we can add a little bit of vanilla. So I just add about a teaspoon of vanilla. And to make it a little richer, we're adding some hemp seeds. So my idea also, if you don't want to use the milk, you can just use more hemp seeds and water. because hemp seeds,
Okay.
when they get blended up, they become a milk. They're very soft, and they're a great source of plant protein. They're one of
And
those,
omega-3s, right?
and omega-3. Same with chia seeds. I've heard, in ranchers programs, helping ranchers. We talk about it in the book. It's rancher advocacy program.
Right.
Some of the, a great crop for them to switch to could be hemp seeds because it's an amazing food. And it can, like I said, it can replace dairy, it can replace meat. You can do all kinds of things with hemp seeds,
Right.
and they are really good for you.
Right. So this is a
So,
program to get people out of the business of ranching animals and
right.
go into the business of ranching mushrooms and hemp seeds and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of ranchers. People think that they enjoy the business. Well, most of them don't. Most of them are taken advantage of by corporations, and they don't have a good deal with them. So it's if they can be independent and grow their own crops and not have to, torture and kill chickens or pigs, then awesome. So just great programs going on. So we'll go ahead and add our hemp seeds. Well, now that we have the milk in, we can add the chia seeds down there, and then our cocoa or cacao powder. So cocoa powder is a little darker like this. It is roasted, and then cacao powder is raw. Either one is fine. They are a little bit different, but they're pretty interchangeable in what you decide you want to use. So go ahead and add that. And I've got my Vitamix that I got in 1990. Look at this
All
thing.
right. Wow. When you went
I
vegan.
became vegan. I did.
So
So I
that's a good
started on
commercial for
low.
Vitamix. This is what they call
Yes.
product placement.
Yes.
All right.
This is the best machine to get.
So we're going to
This
hear some
stand-up
noise
one.
now, aren't we?
Yeah, or maybe it'll get filtered out. So I started on low because these dates in here are going to be tossed around. So we start at low. Then we'll switch it to high. So you
All
just
right.
want to run it until you don't notice any more chunks in there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to give it a look. And then when you restart it, make sure you push it back to low again. So the dates and the chia are what's going to thicken it. So, and you can see, so if you don't blend it, the chia seeds are not going to thicken until later, and they're going to add texture, like I said. But this is, you can see, it's already a nice thick consistency. Now, I'm calling it instant, but right now it's not cold. So you might want to let it refrigerate. And so what I did was I refrigerated one. So this is what it's like after
that looks
you
good.
refrigerate it. You can just have your nice little bowl, and you can put some bananas on it. You can put, I like to make it look pretty with a little more hemp seeds on top.
For those listening to the audio podcast version, we're now adding sliced bananas.
That's right.
To the pudding. And it looks beautiful.
And then, like I said, easy stuff.
Some
Bananas
grapes,
are super,
blueberries.
Yes, these are cherries and blueberries, frozen. And just let them sit out. And they create a really nice dessert. Or, this, honestly, breakfast, lunch.
And
there's
dinner.
Nothing bad in here, right? So there's nothing bad.
There you go.
So you can have it anytime. And
healthy desserts.
Make a great dessert. Just frozen fruit and just thaw them out. Have them with some bananas. Mm-hmm. That's a great breakfast. So it doesn't need to be complicated. People overthink, I think, and they think that they need to, and they also think they need to have protein powder.
Right.
Do we have to have protein powder? I'm going to put myself in front of this light here. Do we? No.
Do we have to have protein powder? No, we do not, in my opinion.
Well, and so many people I know, and I see all these discussions on Facebook about what type of protein powder for vegans. There's plenty of protein in what I just made.
Look, I've been a vegetarian since I was 17, and I've never, to my knowledge, probably somebody put protein powder in a shake for me once or something, but I've never regularly had protein powder, and I'm still standing, except right now I'm sitting. So, I don't think you need protein powder. I don't think you need to worry about protein as long as you're eating human food, which includes legumes, which are very high in protein.
Exactly.
Well, Tracy,
every food has protein in it. That's the thing, the key, especially when you get your certification from the nutrition studies, plant-based nutrition certification. They drill that into you very, very early and very stringently that it's every food, and they go through every single food, even lemons, how much protein they have.
There's something like 330, 340 million Americans, and I don't think there's one American in the hospital today for a lack of protein. People get heart attacks from eating the foods that they think they need to eat for the protein, but nobody's going into the hospital for not having protein.
Yeah.
So as long as you eat whole foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, mushrooms, some nuts and seeds, you're going to get plenty of protein.
Right.
Just don't have to think about it. I think the world would be better off if protein had never been discovered and nobody would talk about it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right. So our book is America Goes Vegan. We have a bonus. If you buy this book and send in your proof of purchase to veganbonus@yahoo.com, you get a PDF file of my book, Food is Climate. You get another recipe file from Tracy and more recipe.
In the book, but still great recipes.
Yeah. So, and more recipe files and other bonuses. So plenty of bonuses just for sending in your proof of purchase to veganbonus@yahoo.com.
Yeah.
All right, Tracy. People can find Tracy's Real Foods at tracysrealfoods.com, right?
Right. tracysrealfoods.com. And enter friends 10 at checkout, and you get 10% off on your first order.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yet another bonus.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tracy, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And everybody just keep in touch and go vegan.
Yes.
Thanks.
7-step process.
7-step program.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
This has been the Glen Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. find us on YouTube at The Glen Merzer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.